Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Awesome. So hey, good morning, everybody. As you mentioned, my name is Alex Linebrink, and I run a payments and event ticketing platform by the name of PassageX. We're bringing blockchain, the benefits of blockchain, to the world of event ticketing. And today I have a experience for about the last 10 years in payments, and I'm going to go over some fraud-related issues. I think that fighting fraud and increasing transparency are two of the biggest aspects of blockchain technology that you can go and utilize right now. There are actually benefits that blockchain technology can bring to applications all over the world right now, and it's something that blockchain is actually better at right away. So with that, blockchain, let's meet real world. All right, if you guys are here, you're probably excited about blockchain technology in one form or another. Maybe you invested early in cryptocurrency and made a lot of money that way, so you're excited to see where it goes now. Maybe you're excited for the revolutionary aspects, the possibility of changing the world, changing how we own money, changing how governments work across the country, that sort of thing. These are huge, but there's also some applications right now that we can talk about and actually make technology better as it stands when it comes to fighting fraud and increasing transparency. So that's what we're going to go over right here. All right, so first off, let's get on the same page. So first off, I want to talk about a couple definitions here. Right off, blockchain. That's a big one, right? We've heard this defined several times today already. I just want to take another stab at it for what it's worth for this discussion here, just to make sure we're on the same page. And that is a secure digital way to track assets. Now, yeah, there's a lot more in blockchain technology here. There's a lot more about the open ledger system and all of this. But right now, we're talking about it as it comes to tracking assets in a secure and digital way, and transparent way as well. Then fraud. All right, fraud is the wrongful or criminal deception intended for personal or financial gain. And usually this is when you misrepresent an asset, the validity of this asset, the ownership of this asset, history, a transaction history of a certain asset. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about fraud here. And also, on getting on the same page, it's important to note where the security of blockchain comes from. And really, to talk about this, the most succinct way that I've come across to put this is security through obscurity versus security through transparency. So traditionally, we like to secure things by locking them behind walls. Basically, we just put walls in between us and the thing that we want to make secure. This can be padlocks. This can be physical walls. It can be locking something in a room or a vault. Maybe you've got special art that you want to lock in a vault, or money that you want to lock into your bank account. But it also can be digital in that you can have digital firewalls that are preventing access. You can have encryption that's preventing access. You can have special keys that people need to get into things. So this is the traditional way of handling security. Just keep as many people from getting to that asset as possible. Make no eyes hit that asset there. But today, with blockchain technology, we have a totally new take on that, and that is security through transparency. So rather than making it so nobody can see the thing that you're trying to protect, we're talking about putting out enough copies of it, actually incentivizing people to take a look at what you're trying to protect and keep records, keep those records that you're trying to keep away. So that's what blockchain technology does in a basic way on the transparent ledger system of it here. We're actually encouraging people to keep copies of this data, millions of copies of this data, so that at the end of the day, if one of these copies changes, it's quickly replaced by all the others because it's seen as the odd one out. And we know that's wrong. We can replace it because we have millions of other copies. And who is going to take the time to hack into millions of systems and change all of those copies? That would be nearly impossible. Not impossible, but statistically, probabilistically impossible. All right, so that's where we get our security with blockchain. A good way to run through an example of that is the old IOU scenario. So if I tell Natalie that I owe her $100, she could come back to me next week and say, hey, where's my $100 that you said you owe me? And I could say at that point, hey, Natalie, I'm sorry, I don't remember ever saying that, so tough, you're out of luck. And that's my word versus Natalie's word, right? At that point, it's just one word versus another. There's very little security there unless we're storing some sort of record away that we're actually going back to. but we don't necessarily have to do that. We can make it transparent. So if I was to tell Natalie I owe her $100 in front of this room, all of a sudden we have 100 people plus people here that hear me saying, hey, Natalie, I owe you $100. And even if I go back on that and I say, Natalie, I never said that. I don't owe you any money. You guys would hold me accountable, right? You guys would be my distributed ledger. In fact, you guys would be all of those copies of that data. So that's where that security comes from. All right, and one other thing before we get into some examples here, I want to talk about what fighting fraud actually means. So traditionally, this has been a very bulky manual process. And like I say, I've been doing this with payment technology for the last decade or so. And it's been something that's a pain in anyone's butt that actually talks about financial transactions or anything that they're transacting assets. Because you're going to basically be doing as much as you can to slow the process down. That's traditionally how we fight fraud. So first off, we verify the party that we're dealing with. And this is traditionally done in a very black box way of handling things. So we will gather as much information as possible, ship it off to some certified identity verifier that we don't even know what they're doing with this data, and they come back to us and say yes or no on that. So not the best way to handle things. And if we ever run into a dispute or trying to figure out the history of a series of transactions, it's this very manual process that this investigation becomes, trying to dig through all of the ping points of where this money has gone in the past or where this person's identity has gone. And that can take weeks or even months when you're investigating something like this, where you're trying to figure out where a fraudulent transaction took place, who that person is, etc. And then really getting up and off the ground, the difficulty level, we're just trying to make it as difficult on these people as possible. So we're gathering as much information as possible. We're creating security through basically being as difficult as possible. We're making the user experience horribly tedious at least, to get into the process of doing financial transactions. And basically, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. People who are trying to get something done take the path of least resistance, right? If you're trying to accomplish a goal, you want to take the path of least resistance. So if you're making something incredibly difficult for fraudsters, that's going to be a path of huge resistance. So it will deter people. Except things have been changing. We've been increasing in technology, artificial intelligence, bots that we saw actually demonstrated earlier, things that can automate these processes, take the difficulty out of the situation, and then that lets fraudsters, again, go back to these systems that were once very difficult and get in much more quickly. And that's a problem that we're coming up with lately. But the blockchain is here to solve a lot of that. So right now with blockchain technology, we finally have the ability to verify people based on private public key technology. We can see that their public key is generated based on a private key that they hold, and that's solving the identity issue. Like that, without collecting tons of information, we have an identity right there. And with the history, instead of taking weeks or months to dig into an investigation on tracing financial transactions and that sort of thing, we can look in the distributed ledger. It's public information there. We can see this data in seconds. So that takes those investigation timelines down. And finally, we can let people get up and running with a low level of difficulty. We don't have to make it as difficult as possible to identify that this person is actually there. So these are all great things about using blockchain technology when it comes to this. So with that, I want to dive into 3 different use cases that maybe you guys haven't thought of. I really actually dug through the agenda to try to find different industries that weren't represented in the other talks that were here. So bear with me. We're not going to talk about health that we just talked about. We're not going to talk about payments and the other ones that you may have heard a lot about. I'm going to try to get some that will stretch your mind a little bit, some areas that you might not have thought about. So number 1, food. Believe it or not, food fraud is very real. So this actually affects tons of people every year. $40 billion in losses, according to a 2016 study by PwC. And actually, believe it or not, out of this room, let's say we have 100 people here right now. I don't know how my estimation abilities are, but 1 in 10, that would mean 10 people in this room are going to get sick this year from foodborne illnesses and contamination illnesses based on fraudulent food supplies. And 420,000 people across the world will die from food issues like this this year. In fact, this has become such an issue that there are companies popping up that are actually just there to investigate food fraud and contaminations in the food supply. So one of these, Inscatech, actually estimates that 75% of all of the cases that they deal with where they're investigating food supply chains contain fraud at some point in that supply chain. And 100% in some certain cases, different countries. China was one of the areas that they had 100% rate. So think about that. Every bit of food you consume in China, and 75% across the world in general, has fraud someplace in that supply chain of what they're saying about that food. In China, there was a big issue with this a couple years ago. Back in 2008, they had a huge issue with tainted powdered milk. There was a chemical that was contained in this milk that should have been found in investigations by people. There are certifiers that actually go through and test this food. It should have been in there. It wasn't. It was stricken from the records. These records were fraudulent, ended up causing over 300,000 infant illnesses, 6 infant deaths during that time period. This is very serious. And in the UK, just a few years ago, in 2013, there was the horse meat scandal, where about 85% of the beef supply in the UK was actually found to have some or all horse meat that was being contained in there. So obviously, this is fraudulent as well. When you're trying to sell something as one thing, but it's actually mostly something else. So how do we fix this? We track it, right? We put it on the blockchain and we track everything possible. We track the origination of the food. We track where the different treatments of the food, chemical treatments, antibiotic treatments. We track the investigations and people that are looking into this food and testing this food along the way to make sure it's legitimate and we have a totally connected supply chain and record. So IBM is working on this right now with 7 different food suppliers around the world. Some big names, Kroger, Walmart, Nestle, a few others are on there as well. They're using the Hyperledger blockchain platform from IBM to work on this problem right now. And already they're finding that investigations into food-related contaminations, disease contaminations in food, are dropping from weeks to seconds. That's incredible when you're talking about trying to stop a contamination of illnesses where people are getting sick, right? If you can break that down from weeks to seconds, you can stop more people from getting sick and potentially stop more deaths. And they're really tracking everything, as I mentioned, location, inspections, chemical treatments, and much, much more. And there are other efforts as well. JD.com and Alibaba.com, which are the largest online retailers in China, have their own private efforts. And Ripe.io actually has a public effort that they're trying to get everybody to join into and have a complete record of all food, any food, and the supply chain connections there. Number 2, art. Yes, art forgeries are real. They're not just in the movies for exciting storylines here. So when it comes to art, this is actually a real problem. It costs about $8 billion a year, the art forgery world. So it happens quite a bit. And this can be anything from stolen art to forgeries to fraudulent records of sales. So one write-off, cool story here, is John Mayat. In the last 100 years, this guy has created over 200 known fraudulent paintings, known forgeries that have been sold, and it's estimated he has somewhere around 130 still out there in circulation that people just can't figure out that they're fake. And this is something that would be stopped, right, if we had some way of connecting the records of ownership of all of these on a regular basis. And another one, Yves Bouvier is actually a broker of art, but he's been able to fraud his buyers, basically. He goes to acquire art for people, buys it at a certain price, and then talks it up. He doesn't provide them accurate records of what he bought that art at, doubles the price to them. He's frauded collectors in excess of $1 billion over the last 2 decades. And again, this is an $8 billion year losses that go into fraud and forged art. All right, so what's the solution? Blockchain. Track everything on the blockchain. Art records, verification, all the way through. So VerisArt is one of the companies that's working on this right now. They're doing a great job. They are really focused on the records and verification, as I mentioned there. and they register art on the blockchain. They actually use the Bitcoin blockchain, which is interesting because that's usually applied to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, but they're actually tracking records on the Bitcoin blockchain, tracking ownership, inspections, and everything in between. And they're doing everything they can to minimize the need for third parties here. So a lot of time, third parties will add crazy high margins in their inspections in between. They're cutting out that third-party middleman here. Others include Mecenas, which is democratizing art ownership, which is pretty interesting. They're actually letting people buy pieces of big art projects and let people get into art that never would have been able to be part of that before. All right, and industry number 3, which is something that's near and dear to me, is the world of event ticketing. If you're looking for an industry that is broken and has a lot of problems, especially when it comes to secondary market sales, this is it. Fans and artists are completely forgotten, and you would know about that if you've purchased tickets to a major event lately. You're probably going to see crazy high fees, 20 to 40% higher than the actual cost of those tickets. At the least, this is going to be frustrating, and at the most, this is going to be something that actually prevents you from going to the event. That's not cool. You'll probably see rampant fraud. Unfortunately, right now, the major secondary marketplaces out there do nothing to actually validate that a ticket purchase is real. That's an issue because then that means that a ticket could potentially be sold on multiple different marketplaces. Let's say 4 or 5 different times, and then just the first person to actually use that ticket to get to the gate gets in. And everybody else gets denied because that ticket was already sold and already used, and you're out of your money there. A lot of events are sold out in minutes to scalpers. That's a huge issue. And artists and producers and event creators are actually usually left out of the revenue streams on the secondary markets. So think about that. The people you're actually going to support, the people that are putting on that event that you love and you want to take part in, are actually being left out of the revenue. Not cool. So again, how do we solve it? Blockchain to the rescue. All right, so my company, PassageX, is actually one that's working on a solution to this. We've created an open network for basically tracking ticket sales and transacting secondary market ticket sales. So anybody can join on and use this market freely, this network freely, to be able to track their tickets and validate those on the blockchain. Basically, you're using a blockchain explorer. You're using an app, a website, maybe a text message engine, maybe an app to scan that you're actually able to just reference that public blockchain record of that ticket to make sure, A, it's a real ticket, and B, it's still valid. It hasn't already been sold and used someplace else. And this also creates the opportunity for unlimited secondary markets. So instead of one market like StubHub, who has control of about 70% of the worldwide secondary sales market, you can have tons of different markets based on brand, based on event type, that are competing and accessing this information on this public blockchain here. And you can also have customized revenue splits, so you are supporting the artists and event producers that are working on these platforms here and making sure they get a revenue split as well. But there are other solutions too. So Upgraded Inc. is one of these. They're working on a solution. Crypto Tickets. And Eventus actually has a really interesting just protocol for creating tickets on the blockchain rather than just tracking them, actually creating those tickets there. And the list goes on. So if you're talking about industries that can benefit from fighting fraud, the fraud fighting benefits and the transparency benefits of blockchain, they're everywhere. You've heard about several of them today, from cryptocurrency to health. More include real estate and collectibles. Basically, anybody who needs to track those assets digitally can benefit from these technologies. But what's next? If we really want to push this forward, there are 2 main issues that I think we need to take a look at that aren't really being, well, they're being addressed. People are working on these, but there's still problems. Number 1 here, oh, there we go, is the physical versus digital identity divide. So this happens right now, right? So like, yeah, we know if you've got a public key, we know that the private key was used to get to that public key. We know that that's one identity digitally, but we don't know how to connect that to the physical world. We don't know how to connect that to an actual human being. And I don't have any answer right now. Do we use genetic testing to verify this on the blockchain? Do we use a series of complicated biomarkers? Do we use a BuzzFeed quiz? I don't know. There are potentially a lot of different options to make this happen, but it's something we have to address sooner rather than later if we want this to be a universal implementation. And then user interface is the other way. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of projects using the blockchain put blockchain technology too far forward. They make you deal with it as a user, and really this is a back-end technology that people should be using. The user shouldn't see the blockchain technology. They should only be seeing the benefits of blockchain technology. So what I'm talking about here is having a project that isn't necessarily a cryptocurrency, but still requires you to have a wallet for a cryptocurrency wallet. Still requires you to have your own public and private keys and keep track of all those. These are issues that really should be dealt with by the platform that's developing that technology and not by the user directly. So with that, thank you for listening. These are things that I think can help push blockchain forward and really make it something that's going to be mainstream for all of us in every technology we use every day.
Thanks, Alex. And we have just one question now, and then we'll go for a break, and you can ask lots of questions to all the speakers. And who will be taking that question?
Hello. How to become a blockchain expert?
How to begin? That's a great question. I don't think there are too many experts out there right now. I don't really consider myself an expert. I'm fairly technical, but I'm not in the nitty-gritty on developing on the blockchain right now. I'm creating products on top of it. Yeah, I think with everything, it's using it, right? Just like anything else that you want to become an expert at, you have to make usage of it and find those interesting fringe use cases, struggle with them, struggle with breaking through the issues that you have. You know, for our technology, we've been working on this for a year and a half or so, and we've really been running into a lot of headaches along the way, and that makes you become an expert, right, when you break through those walls. So I think on the development side, that's something, and then on the other side, just keep your eyes open. Read the news articles, read the research that you see around, you know, keep track of everything, because I think it's important. A lot of the world is moving in that direction, and it's going to be something that's just important to stay on top of. Yeah.
Answer, Alex, and yes, use it and then struggle with it until you become an expert in it.